Welcome to the Fantasy Happy Hour. Fantasy Happy Hour. Presented by Sportsneak. With your hosts, Justin Sauce and Terry Licious. Starting in 3, 2, 1.
Boom. Welcome back. Fantasy Happy Hour Thanksgiving edition for our American friends in the NFL. If you're like a normal person and live in Canada, you had Thanksgiving a month ago. We're too close to Christmas. You get turkey in a month anyways. So we got quite the slate for you. Week 11, or is it week 12?
12, I believe.
Yeah, I think I messed that one up. But we got 3 big games throughout the day here. We got the 7-3 Buffalo Bills versus the Detroit Lions, who are 4-6 and somehow second in the division at 10:30 our time. Many other times, depending where you live elsewhere. Lions coming off a big win against the Giants, 31-18. Bills coming off of a win against the Browns. And then later on in the afternoon, for the middle of the day, we got the 7-3 Cowboys versus the 7-3 Giants. A divisional matchup here. Or is it 2? No, it's 3. Either way, big division match here for these two folks. Dak Prescott back in versus the Giants, as earlier in the year when they played, he was not in. And then for the matinee at the end of the day, we got the 6-4 Patriots versus Terran's 8-2 Vikings. The Vikings coming off of a big L against the Cowboys, 40-3. The Patriots coming off a big win, 10-3 over the Jets. So Terran, let's just jump into this bad boy of a slate. First off, my question for you, if we're going into the Bills versus the Lions, I know you're going to kick it off probably with some QB talk, but with Allen as having a Q tag expected to play, though, will he be the number one QB option of the day for your lineups?
I'm actually not leaning to him as number one, but definitely in the top 2. He's him or Dak. These are 2 kind of games with high totals. The thing that scares me about each of them is that the Bills, I don't know, when they get into some of these spots, they can kind of let up. This is the highest total, easily going to be the most scoring, I think, on the slate. It kind of starts high, middle, and then that basement game at the end of the day is all about the defense, I think, so far for people. But, you lean into Josh Allen. He's carried this Q tag now for 2 or 3 weeks. He's going to play. He's going to play his normal game. He's going to throw a lot. I think this is the way to attack Detroit. Detroit gets into shootouts week after week. I mean, we're seeing, 45 to 50 totals with them almost every week, except for one. So I expect this to be the shootout of the day. And this is a defense who can't really stop any quarterback. So I think Josh Allen should be in your top 2, if not the top play. And he is priced as if he's going to be the top play by a lot. I think he's 1,400 more than any other quarterback. So I think you can onslaught the Bills if you want here, and include Singletary in that. I do actually like the other side of this ball. The Bills defense has slowed down quite a bit. They've been battling a lot of injuries. This is an indoor game in Detroit on the fast track. I think back-to-back now here for the Bills playing in Detroit after their game getting moved. But you're going to see Goff throw a ton. And this is the best way to attack the Bills, I think, is through the air a little bit. So the problems I see with the Lions and Goff is that they run the ball in the red zone almost every time. Last week, they got to the red zone and Jamal Williams had 3 touchdowns. So that's kind of the scare taking Goff. But I think he's in a good spot if you want to be different on this big slate. If we move to wide receiver, I'm going to try to be quick here because we got to get through 3 games. Lions are Monroe St. Brown is the lock at wide receiver. If you want to pick a guy in this game, it's him or Diggs. They're both definitely the number one. But there's a lot of Q tags on Detroit's side. Jamison Williams, he got activated but isn't going to play. They don't expect him to play. Josh Reynolds Q tag, Chark Q tag, both operating at less than 100. So look to maybe Khalif Raymond or Tyler Kennedy if all these guys are out. Khalif Raymond saw 7 targets last week with both these guys out, so he's a good kind of cheaper option on this whole large slate. And then on the other side, Diggs had a very quiet game considerably last week. Caught a touchdown, but I mean, it was pretty light for Diggs. He does like Turkey Day though. So last year, I think he was 7 for 70 with a touchdown. So he's a good option here. But this is the Bills have a lot of weapons, and I think Gabe Davis over Diggs might be a play just to keep yourself low in ownership. I mean, there's going to be clear chalk here with very one-sided games. So I mean, go to Gabe Davis or sneak in Isaiah McKenzie, sneak in Dawson Knox, and maybe leave Diggs off as the stack just to be a little different. Because I mean, 3 games with this one being a higher total by 9 from any other game means it's going to be highly owned. So running back, I think Detroit's running backs are always in play. They do, like I said, run in the red zone. That's pretty much what they do. They'll run even 3 times, 3 downs from a 1 if they're on the 1. Jamal Williams is kind of taken over. Swift is still lingering with injury. I think Swift is the sneaky play, and he's very underutilized, but if he breaks one, that's the play. But Jamal Williams is kind of more security to get TDs, especially if they get to the red zone. And I expect scoring on both sides of this ball. So I think there will be some touchdowns. Singletary's kind of returned to playing really well, but Singletary's ceiling is like 18 DK points in his great games, they call them. Like last week, they called it a great game. He had 18 DK points. Like he doesn't spike like the other guys will, but I think, certainly at his price, he might be an okay play. I think this game will have the most ownership. So I think maybe getting away from a lot of these guys that you think maybe just get that middling score would be a good idea. Tight ends, Detroit has a mess. After trading Hawkinson, Brock Wright appears to be the lead guy, but you could maybe try Zylstra, or I think it's James Mitchell is the other one, but it's very rare that you're going to see much action for these guys. Dawson Knox got 7 targets, 7 receptions last week. So I think he's a great piece to add to this game overall. And so that would be where I'd go. I believe him and Hawkinson will come in high owned because you can hear my daughter crying in the back. But that's kind of all I had. I think the defense is in play on both sides. I really like the Lions as a cheap D. Josh Allen's been giving it up quite a bit. So 2 picks, I think, last game, and then the game before against the Vikings, they had a lot of points for being in a high scoring game. So that's an option at the cheapest price you're going to get on this small slate. Do you have anything to add before I move to the next game?
I just want to end this quick one with a quick question. We got on lines running back side, Williams and Swift. They're almost virtually identical in like fantasy points. If you have to pick one, who are you taking?
Williams for sure. I think he just gets the red zone work that you want. This isn't an easy D to run on. So I think taking Swift with that lingering injury is just, that is a good contrarian play, but I definitely lean Williams as more reliability.
Okay, perfect. Thanks for game 1. Let's move on to the divisional match here. 7-3 teams, Giants versus Cowboys.
Yeah, 44.5 total, 8-point favorites for the Cowboys. Boy, did they annihilate the Vikings, and it was all due to the defense play. Their offense did play well, but I didn't expect no points, but their defense basically was walking to Cousins. So I would really be worried about the Giants O-line here, not one of the best O-lines. But with that said, I think Daniel Jones is actually in a good spot. Daniel Jones, unlike Kirk Cousins, actually can run, which is the problem when you're a pocket passer with no pocket. But Daniel Jones, if he gets pushed out, maybe it can run and get you he has had, like last week, he still put up 28 DK points, I think it was, and he only threw 1 touchdown, but he rushed 1. So his rushing upside's big in a game where this pass rush destroys the O-line. And if you can break out of that pass rush, the way to attack this defense was to run the ball, specifically in the middle. So I think Daniel Jones and Saquon become kind of options in that regard. Dak on the other side, super efficient, but he's also getting, great running back play, which kind of makes it concerning at whether you'd like him to blow up or not blow up here. He did throw 2 to his running back, but their total, I think, was 4 touchdowns for running backs there in Dallas last week, 2 through the air and 2 on the ground. Giants were playing solid pass D earlier in the season, but it's been steadily getting worse. I believe Dak's kind of the top option. He's like the trade option to take over Allen in very one-sided matchups. This O-line was performing awesome in the run game last week, so I think that might lean them to just run the ball, burn this clock, and it's supposed to be a bit sloppy. I saw rain in the forecast, and I think this is in New York, so it could be cold and rainy, so you might see a lot more running, which is the reason to maybe move off, or it's the reason to plan to be different. So I kind of like both quarterbacks here, but I'd lean Daniel Jones as like a sneaky upside guy in this game. Saquon, I think he could be there. He's been kind of mediocre, and then Breida gets the touchdown there last week to sadden all the Barkley pickers, I guess. But best way to attack this team's up the middle. Their outside pass rush is just awesome. So it tends to break the line really early. So can this O-line hold up at all or break that middle? I don't know. But Saquon's kind of let people down, and at his price, it's tough to trust that he's going to be the best option in this small slate. And then one of my favorite double stacks of the week is to go Pollard and Zeke in the same lineup. These two are kind of becoming a very, very good backfield for the Cowboys. Pollard came in as a replacement for Zeke's injury, and Pollard's played phenomenal. I cannot imagine they go away from him. He's getting more use, but they did realize last week that the bigger back needs to be the red zone back because Pollard can't quite run through all the big bodies, whereas Zeke just kind of falls over into the end zone. So they're kind of playing it that way. Pollard plays a lot more between the 20s, and then Zeke comes in more on the red zone. So I think both of these are great plays with an offensive line playing phenomenal. We moved down. Wan'Dale Robinson headed to the IR, wide receiver for the Giants there. So we got Slayton and Golladay. Golladay being super disappointing all season and kind of hurt. Slayton has a good upside and reliability, but this passing attack tends to not perform too well. So, I mean, it's just a shot in the dark. I think you could take Slayton to be different or look to those deeper options as punt plays like Richie James, Marcus Johnson, Devin Sills, because it looks like I don't trust Golladay. I think he's just looked poor and he's kind of lingering with an injury. So I'd go other places if you want to take the passing attack. I think you can go naked, Daniel Jones with no wide receivers here too. I think that's a good option for the rushing upside. And then the other side, CeeDee Lamb's the clear number one here. Just needs the game to stay close because if the running backs take over, this game gets out of hand. I think that you're not going to need much from Lamb. And Gallup has started to get a lot more in the mix, and he's kind of that deep threat down the side. As well as Noah Brown. So I think you could take both those guys as kind of sneaky options. So certainly good price saving options at wide receiver there if you're not taking all the running backs. And then Schultz is one of the better tight ends as a third man. I see Hawkinson being the top owned clearly, and then, Knox and Schultz being that, who do we pick next? So I like both of them. 5 and 8 targets the last 2 games, caught a TD too. So he could be a very good safety blanket play here as just getting a nice floor for your lineup. Again, with another tight end carousel for the Giants, Bellinger's back. He's probably the best option, but look to Cager if not. Hudson seems to be moved into more of a blocking role. A bit of a mess there, but those are price-saving tight end plays. Hope for a TD. So that's kind of it for that game for me, Justin.
Quick question for you, ending off this one. Cowboys are the highest priced defense on the day. They did get 10 fantasy points against the Giants previously in the year, which would be a great bargain if you get that for your defense on the slate. Are they your lean to for the defense for the day?
Yeah, high priced. I think you go Cowboys. They're just clearly the best defense here against what is probably the worst. They have the best matchup, I guess, as a defense, and they're just playing well. Watch them last week. They break the O-line pretty much every play. So if Daniel Jones can't escape, he's going to get sacked probably 4 or 5 times, even when he escapes. I think he's still going to see 5, 6, 4, somewhere in that range of sacks. So they have a nice floor to play in this slate.
Perfect. Well, let's move on to the last one for the day. 8-2 Vikings, your favorite team against the 6-4 Patriots. What are we looking at for this one? And will the Vikings lose another one?
Yeah, this is set up to be a very ugly, low-scoring game, similar to every game the Patriots have played this season. Patriots come off of a win on special teams with 5 seconds or 30 seconds left, and the Vikings got demolished. Watching that game, they actually took it off the network, so that's how bad that game was. CBS actually changed it to the Steelers game with 2 teams that one is mathematically eliminated. So it was just that bad. And now they get the sack leader in the NFL and Judon after watching basically any Cowboy walk through their offensive line. So this is tough. Quarterback Cousins has been efficient all year until last week, but last week, if you watch that game, he was dropping back and basically getting sacked instantly. He never had time to even go through progressions. They were basically just letting him walk, and they're riddled with injuries on their O-line. So this could be a really rough game against a very good defensive line. So I think he's going to resort to short, quick passes, dump offs to running backs, quick passes to tight ends. which is probably not a good game for Jefferson here. So which means I don't really like him. He might be efficient, but I don't expect it to be a big game at quarterback in this matchup. And these cornerbacks on the other side have been very good. Jones probably looking to be one of the top 2 or 3 in the NFL. So I don't know how that'll go. I think he's just not a strong enough play. I think if you're going to lean, I actually think you lean to the other side. Mac Jones has looked terrible, but this is a defense that you can certainly attack through the air, especially with the injuries on the left side. So the left cornerback position last week just got picked on by the Cowboys anytime they needed a first down because they're on their third string guy. Booth, I think is his name, and he was basically just letting guys catch the ball or taking a penalty. So the non-Patrick Peterson side, I called it, is basically wide open. So revolving rookies over there. So I think Mac Jones has a chance to just kind of throw for quite a bit. He threw for 260 in that game last week, even though the Jets held them to only 10 points, and which the 7 of those points was special teams. So I think he could be in a good spot late that no one's going to look at. This game has sets up to be just the lowest scoring of all of them. But I actually think that's where you can kind of attack, because the way the day progresses, if you're sneaky in this last game and the other 2 don't go the way you want them, this could be the one to pick on. I like Dalvin Cook here, running backs. I'm going to move over to. He was a bit of a bright spot last week, and his usage should be very high. Like I said, I think it's going to be a lot of dump offs. They are the number 1 ranked rush D in the NFL, so I don't think he's going to get there as much on the ground as through the air. But I think he can break that big play to kind of open this game up if they want. So this is kind of the spot the Vikings need to really stand up and kind of play their running back. Stevenson and Harris on the other side, very good for both of them. This is a good spot. The Vikings D overall is just middling to like way in the back. So, you're ranked 22nd against the run. These guys both get a lot of use. This is a run first offense from the Patriots. So I certainly see an opening to taking both of these guys. Like showdown, I might consider both, but in the full slate, I'd probably take one. And I think I'd lean Stevenson. He just gets more use. But Harris will definitely come back and have a role here. So it's kind of split. So you got to pick the right one, but they're both in great spots. Wide receivers, we're going to move to Jefferson. Gets probably Mr. Jones, who's ranked very well and has played great against top wide receivers. That should be a good matchup. I do believe Jefferson's matchup proof, but I just don't think there's going to be the time to give him the ball enough. This O-line can't really hold up against what is one of a very good pass rush in the NFL. So I think this could be an okay game. Like I see like a 7 for 90 line, but I don't think at his price that's going to be good enough. So it's my honest Vikings take here. I want them to win, but I think it's through Cook and Hawkinson actually, and not so much Jefferson. I think going to like Thielen or Osborne could be a good cheaper option just because they're going to see the middle of the field on those short, quick routes. They might try to open that up for Jefferson to go further, but I do think it's a good spot for, secondary guys and not Jefferson here. Patriots wide receivers, it's a bit of a cycle of a pile of guys, but the one consistent is Jacoby Myers. He sees 6 to 8 targets. He'll certainly line up on that left side against whoever plays corner in Minnesota. And then you got Thornton, Parker, Aguilar, Bourne, all potentially playing in this game, which means you're kind of picking a guy to get the TD. Outside of that, they tend to only see 2-3 targets each. So it's kind of a poor look, but look for maybe Thornton or Parker to take the deep balls because Thornton's a speedster, so maybe he can get behind the defense. Tight end, my favorite play on this, probably the whole slate's Hawkinson. He's seeing huge target volume here, and it can only get better in a game where you need to just quick dump the ball. So tight end's going to run his 5-yard hitches and just get the ball a lot. So I think this is set up for him to do very well. And then the other side, you got Hunter Henry, who's started to see a bit of volume, but I mean, again, it's not enough. This passing offense spreads the ball a lot to running backs. So outside of Jacoby Myers, I think this is a kind of a poor outing for Hunter Henry. So that's pretty much it. This could be a tough game. I'm kind of leaning Vikings get there in a very sluggish game, but it could maybe outscore what other people think.
2 quick questions for you on this game here. First off, Jacoby Myers, is he at $5,100 and 14.5 fantasy points per game a must play in most of your lineups as the wide receiver 1 for the Patriots? Good price point, high fantasy points per game. Thoughts?
I don't think he's a top play, but I think he's a good play that he'll switch your lineup up a bit. I think at his price, he's kind of in that spot where a lot of people are going to avoid him because they're going to pick high running backs or one high wide receiver, and that's not going to allow them to get to 5,100 there. So I think he's a good option to maybe do a middling set of wide receivers instead of like high low, which I think a lot of people will do on this slate. So I do think at his price and for my own fantasy lineup, it'd be great if he did really well.
Second question for you. I know he's your boy, but Hawkinson, when he was on the lines, different team. I'll give you that. But earlier in the season, they played the Pats. They held him to 1.9 fantasy points, and he was 1 for 4 on the targets on the day.
Yeah,
Do you think they hold him off the board again?
He could bust. This game could get real ugly. Like last week, we saw a game with the Jets, both good defenses, 10-3 with almost no offense across the board. They could hold him, but I think that the Vikings have kind of shifted the way they play offense compared to Detroit. So I do see them having more option to just give him the little short routes where I think he'll get there off small targets. Now, albeit last week, he dropped way too many passes, which was very frustrating. A touchdown he dropped at one point, 2 other passes that were right in his hands. So he did, maybe that comes back, but I do think he just volume based on the slate. He's probably the best tight end option.
Perfect. Well, thank you everyone for watching. If you like the video, give it a thumbs up. Let us know who you're taking in the comments. If you really enjoy the content, please consider subscribing, and also have a great Thanksgiving. I will be extremely jealous of all the great food that people will be eating, as I will be cooking chicken and rice, the usual around here. But yeah, we'll see you guys next week for some more action and a little bit less football. And maybe we'll even touch on some World Cup stuff, because USA, big tie, they were upset. They needed the win. Tomorrow we got Team Canada going for a big upset, hopefully like Saudi Arabia did today against Belgium. But yeah, we'll keep it all football. Peace.